Hello kind people of YouTube and welcome back to another video. It has been a very interesting, exciting news day despite being so close to the holidays. You would think nothing much would happen on the Sunday before Christmas. Well, we got a bunch of interesting stories to talk about today, so let's jump straight into it. And let's begin with Raiden finally being live on the Ethereum network. Now this is an early alpha version. So it is not the final version, it does not have full functionality, it's not completely live. But this is a massive step, so let's read this article. As always, if you want to read any of these yourself, the links will be in the description. Of course, then you don't get my commentary and my beautiful voice, so why would you want to read any of this yourself? After the releases of the first Raiden Network proof of concept over 2 years ago, the testnet in 2017, and the project's second testnet this past summer, the Red Eyes Alpha has at last been deployed on the Ethereum mainnet. The Raiden team welcomes individuals to test the network by doing token transfers and taking part in the bug bounty. So what we're seeing here is that after years of development where we had testnets, where we had different trial versions essentially, this is the first time that something is being applied directly on top of the Ethereum network. Raiden is a second layer solution designed to improve Ethereum scalability and privacy. The payment network relies on state channels which facilitate transactions off-chain and then submit these state changes to the main chain. This setup is designed to improve transaction speeds while reducing costs. A couple of key features of the Red Eyes Alpha gotta get rid of this. A couple of key features of the Red Eyes Alpha include the opening, topping up, closing and setting of payment channels, as well as single and multi-hop transfers. There's also an upgraded protocol to deal with edge cases, gas-efficient EDCCs, aka smart contracts, and a redesigned web user interface, among other features. So a ton of technological upgrades to Ethereum. Important to keep in mind though, this is not a technological update to Ethereum itself. This is a second layer application running on top of Ethereum, much like the Lightning Network on top of Bitcoin and Litecoin. Moreover, Raiden has implemented various safety measures to help protect users as Red Eyes is in alpha testing, and the security of the network has not been audited by a third party. Accordingly, the team has limited deposits to 0.15 Ether per channel. The sum of all channel deposits is limited to 250 Ether. There is only one available token network, and there is a depreciation switch, allowing Raiden to close the network if a major security issue arises. And that is pretty much all we need to read here. This is an absolutely enormous step forward for Ethereum. Now, it will probably take a couple more months, possibly even a year or more, for a final version of Raiden to go completely live on top of Ethereum. But this is probably the biggest step that Raiden has taken so far. Now, Raiden is pretty much set to fix a lot of the technological shortcomings that Ethereum has compared to more recent cryptocurrency projects. Essentially, this is improving scalability and privacy and also technical capacities of the platform in a way that gets it up to speed and in some ways gets it to be superior to some of the top performing more modern cryptocurrency projects. Now, that is a common issue with older cryptocurrencies that when they were released, they were completely technologically revolutionary. But in the years since their release, other newer projects have been able to outperform them because of course they were able to innovate on these previous innovations. And the team working on Ethereum has lately been doing a pretty good job at getting their platform up to speed, at pushing out upgrades. We have Constantinople coming. We got Raiden now in alpha. Still a long way to go, but this is coming. This is now being actively tested. Soon we will probably have a beta, and then a couple months later we will have it live on the network. And this will make Ethereum a much more attractive place for a lot of different purposes, for a lot of different use cases. And one important one is for decentralized applications, where one of the biggest issues that Ethereum faces is that transactions on it are not as efficient and not as cheap as on some competing platforms like EOS, like Cardano, like Tron. And with Raiden, they are significantly making those more efficient. I'm not quite sure if they're as efficient as they are on some other networks. They're definitely not as efficient as they are on EOS, because on EOS you generally do not pay the fees at all. But in general, Raiden is a massive step forward for Ethereum, really gets it placed where the number 3 cryptocurrency should be placed technologically. And this might be able to get some of the development that has been moving over to other platforms back in the long run. Because Ethereum has had a problem this year where the number of dApps being developed on there has not been rising as much as the number of dApps being developed on other platforms, where the number of users on their dApps is very low compared to the number of users on other dApp platforms. And some of that is just down to technologically not being as attractive as some other cryptocurrency projects. Raiden is a good step to make it significantly more attractive in the future, and for it to possibly claw back some of the lost space, some of the lost market share. Let's remain at Ethereum for a while because we got some interesting statements here. Joseph Lubin, co-founder of major cryptocurrency Ethereum, declared that he is calling the crypto bottom of 2018. According to Lubin, the crypto market's bottom is marked by an epic amount of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, specifically from industry media and social commentators, which he refers to as our friends in the fourth and crypto fifth estates. Continuing in a Twitter thread, the founder of Ethereum blockchain-focused software firm ConsenSys then evidently addressed his firm's recently reported major layoffs. And he said, ConsenSys remains healthy and is engaging in a rebalancing of priorities and activities which started about 9 months ago. And let's stop here for a moment because we already have 2 statements from him. We have him calling what we have seen in the last couple of weeks the bottom and essentially saying that it is not going lower, that it is over now. At least that is how I am reading his statements. And we definitely have some reason to believe from the market movements in the last week and a half or so that we might have reached the bottom somewhere in the middle of the 3,000 area for Bitcoin, that we seem to be safely around 4,000 again and looking upward, with Ethereum in particular performing incredibly well today after news of Raiden going live, or rather an alpha of Raiden going live, and some other cryptocurrencies also doing very well the last couple days. Now, I wouldn't go as far as to say that this is definitely the lowest it has gone for now. This could very well be a bit of a dead cat bounce. This could make us all feel reassured and then it could drop straight down to under 3,000. That is a possibility. That is definitely a possibility. I don't think it is particularly likely. I think it's entirely possible that we have seen a bottom for now. That, of course, assuming that in January, February of 2019 is when we'll see the market pick up with all the news that we have of events going to happen at that time. With Back going live, with a bunch of other stuff, with a lot of big players moving into the crypto world in January, February. If we are going to see the markets turn around then, if we're going to see the next bull market launch then yes, we have probably seen the bottom right now. But what I actually find more interesting is how he's talking about ConsenSys here, because if we're actually looking at what has been happening with ConsenSys, we're seeing here that sources have reported that between 50 and 60% of ConsenSys' workforce is being let go. That is an incredibly high number. And that is not the number you usually see from a company that is doing just fine. Now, I don't want to predict doom for ConsenSys here, because I don't think that is the case. They are probably not doing extremely terribly, but they are suffering from the recent bear market in the same way that everyone else is suffering from it. And you can only bear that for so long until you start making tough decisions. And what this looks like to me from an admittedly outside view is that they are getting rid of a lot of startups that they back, they're getting rid of a lot of their staff, because after a year of prices going down like crazy, that has significantly hurt the operations of a lot of the projects they are involved in. That has significantly hurt ConsenSys itself. And while ConsenSys is probably nowhere near dead, it is not currently in a position to be quite as large as it got in the last couple of years. So that is what I think is happening here. I don't think ConsenSys is dead, in the same way that I don't think Ethereum is dead just because the price fell relatively low recently. Those things will bounce back. ConsenSys is a big, well-established company in the crypto world, but seeing them drop reportedly about half their entire staff There is no way you can frame that as them being perfectly fine and having no troubles at all. I find it much more likely that they're facing troubles, but that those are problems that will ultimately be overcome and that the next bull market will put them into perfect health again. But while we're waiting for a bull market, let's talk about the coins that are currently on the market and which ones of them are the most attractive. And we get monthly rankings out of China that attempt to quantify the quality of different cryptocurrency projects. And let's look at the latest of those. EOS seems to have won the heart of Chinese crypto enthusiasts. Yesterday, China's Center for Information and Industry Development, under the country's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, published the latest update of its Global Public Blockchain Technology Assessment Index. That is a mouthful. The study concludes that EOS is the best cryptocurrency within the global market cap, with a score high enough to keep it in first place during several editions of this ranking. According to an official press release, EOS topped the list with a total score of 156.1 points, a remarkable achievement for EOS as it not only remains undefeated for months, but has had a considerable improvement compared to previous scores over the last few months. And let's just look at the actual scores because we don't really need anything else here. They are assessing based on 3 aspects, and they are calling them basic tech, applicability, and creativity. Now, how exactly they get to these scores is not publicly disclosed or easily understood. I do not know how they value tech, how they value applicability, how they value creativity. With creativity in particular seems like a very malleable category, where one person might call the same thing creative that someone else might call completely useless or stupid. And we're seeing some interesting developments because of it. Like, for instance, we are seeing XRP, which they mischaracterize as Ripple here. Of course, Ripple is not the name of the platform or of the token. Ripple is the name of the company behind it. But they are giving Ripple here a 9.9 in creativity, because, of course, Ripple is dealing with a well-known problem and is using technology that works to deal with it. In this case, you have to wonder, does it matter if it's creative, if it works, if it's a good product? And then you have other coins that have incredibly low tech scores. Bitcoin here has a tech score of 43.7. That is the lowest of any coin by a massive margin. Bitcoin has the lowest tech score of any of these coins. But it gets to have a relatively high position, and a position above XRP, because it has an innovation creativity score of 36. Now, you have to wonder here, in 2018, what makes Bitcoin particularly creative? When it was launched in 2008, it was innovative and incredibly creative. Nowadays, it doesn't do anything that every other coin does not do. So I'm a bit confused about how they get to these different numbers. And you also have to keep in mind, this is ultimately coming from the Chinese government. So you are likely to see some bias either consciously or subconsciously flowing into here. China has been well known to try and push down all cryptocurrency projects that they consider a risk. And they generally consider things a risk that they can't control. Because China, of course, very authoritarian state, full control of its citizens pretty much, a lot of surveillance in a completely unprecedented way. No country has ever surveilled its citizens like China is surveilling its citizens right now, and they are planning to further increase that by a ridiculous amount in the next couple of days. Read up on the whole situation if you don't know what I'm talking about. Look up Sesame Score. I believe that is what the system is called. It is absolutely dystopian. But because of that, whenever you get any information from any Chinese government channels or anything even tangentially related to the Chinese government, you always have to take it with a bucket of salt. But in general, if we are looking at some of their top choices, I mean, EOS does seem like a valid choice there, because at least for tech and applicability and creativity, however they define these terms, however they get to these numbers, and once again, they're very confusing. Like, what is the top score that you can get in any of these counts, in any of these areas? You would assume 100, but then you see EOS at 106. And for the others, you might assume you can get 30, but then No, these are all below 30. But here you might expect you can get 30, but then you see Bitcoin at 36. So very, very, very confusing, this whole thing. But the takeaway from this is essentially that the Chinese government, and that is what this is backed by the Chinese government. The Chinese government is coming out and saying for, I think, the 4th month in a row, that EOS is the most attractive, interesting cryptocurrency. Now, I'm a big supporter of EOS. I have recently had some issues with them. I think there are various technological and oh my god, I can't think of the word I need right now. There are both technological issues and issues in governance issues around EOS that have recently emerged. So I'm a bit worried about them, but generally I am very much a supporter of EOS. I think it's a very promising project. So seeing it in number 1 here seems legitimate to me. But then when you look at the entire rest of the list, it just seems utterly confused. And I'm honestly not quite sure how they get to some of these. I would like more transparency. I would like them to just tell us how exactly they get to these scores. Like, do certain technological qualities translate into certain numbers of points? Like, does a certain amount of supply centralization result in a certain number of points being dragged away? Like, how is applicability judged? It's just very, very confusing. But it is interesting to see these released every month because, like I said, these are government-backed from China. And China, of course, in a very interesting position regarding crypto. Takeaway here is EOS wins by far. They don't know that Ripple is called XRP. And Bitcoin has the lowest tax score by a massive margin. And at least for that, I absolutely know where they're coming from. That is just an objective truth here. But very, very confusing. Very confusing. Wish we had more information about that. And last but not least, we have recently seen a lot of delistings on cryptocurrency exchanges. And KuCoin or QCoin, I honestly do not know what it is pronounced, how it is pronounced. I'm just going to call it KuCoin. Has been front and center. They have been removing cryptocurrency tokens pretty much every other week. And there's 10 more going off the platform now. And I think you will be interested in one of them. The list of affected coins are as follows. Raiden Network, never heard about it. WePower, never heard about it. Modem, never heard about it. Etherland, I think I've heard that once. STK, what is that? Ash, what is that? Bread, you know, of course. BitClave, also don't know what that is. Mobius, not very relevant. But then you'll see the last one here, and it's Bitcoin Gold. And Bitcoin Gold is pretty much Bitcoin Cash's ugly little sister. And from the moment it was created, you could tell it was jumping on the bandwagon of forking Bitcoin to create new coins. But at least early on, some people did support Bitcoin Gold, expected it to go big in the future. I think most of that was completely unfounded hope, just because they saw that Bitcoin Cash was surviving and had a pretty good value. But now we're seeing Bitcoin Gold so irrelevant, have so little trading volume, that it is actually being delisted on exchanges. And that is pretty much the death knell to a cryptocurrency once it's being delisted, especially if it's being mentioned in one breath with a bunch of tokens that no one has ever heard of. Then that is just rough. Now, if you hold any of these on KuCoin, you can still take them off the platform. You just won't be able to trade anymore with them. But you don't have all that much time, like as it says here, you have until March 21st of 2019. They're giving you pretty much exactly 3 months to get your coins out of there, so make sure if you hold any of these on there, get them out. Most of these I wouldn't know what you would even do with them, where you would even actively be able to sell them for anything resembling value, but just so you know. This is just a lesson. Always be careful what you invest in, because we see there are so many cryptocurrency projects out there, and a lot of them have no legitimate use cases, don't have a reason to exist, don't have a good team behind them, don't do anything that 50 other cryptocurrencies don't do better, and a lot of people buy them just because they're cheap or because some pump and dump YouTuber who is just trying to scam them out of money has advertised them. And if you see, now that we're seeing so many of them just being kicked off exchanges, left and right, and once you're off a lot of major exchanges, you are dead. Your project is dead once you've been delisted from too many exchanges. So be very careful what you invest in. Read up on the projects that you're investing in. Look up who is working for them, look up what they're trying to achieve, look up what their technology is, look up which companies, if any, they're working with. Try to figure out if anyone actually relevant, well-known in the crypto space is backing it. Just be careful with your financial decisions, because there is massive room for earnings in the crypto world. And there is so much future potential price-wise. But there's also potential for massive losses if you're not careful where you put your money. Because out of the 2,000 or so cryptocurrencies that we have now, how many do you think will be relevant in 10 years? It will be a handful. So be careful, guys. Be careful what you invest in. That is why I pretty much never talk about coins outside the top 100 by market cap. There are absolutely some legitimate projects in there, but most of it is not at all worth talking about or investing in. There are plenty attractive projects that are bigger, that are well proven, that have a track record, that have a real team behind them. Be careful what you invest in. And with that, I'm going to end today's video. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you want to read any of these yourself, the links will be in the description, as well as links to my social media pages. I have a Facebook and a Twitter. If you enjoy my videos and would like to support me, there are ways to do so monetarily in the channel. If you cannot or don't want to give me any money, that is perfectly fine. I would just ask that you leave a like or maybe a comment under this video. That is incredibly appreciated and really helps me get found by new people on YouTube. Because the YouTube algorithms, the YouTube overlords, really care about a metric called engagement. And that is essentially how long do people watch your video, how many likes are left on your video, how many comments are left on your video, and how much is your video shared. So if you watch my videos fully, if you leave a like and comment, and ideally if you share it with your friends, that is incredibly appreciated. It really helps the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with another video at the latest tomorrow.